I've made a video game. Game jams let you test your ability to make a game in a short amount of time. But what if you wanted to really shorten that gap? Can you make a game in just 1 hour? The fact that you're watching this intro sort of gives away the answer, but we'll ignore that. Let's talk game design. Before I start this challenge, I'm going to need an idea. I can't waste precious time sitting there twiddling my thumbs going, what if I made Minecraft but with guns? Or what if I made Sonic the Hedgehog but with guns? Or what if I made The Last of Us 2 but it was fun? No, I need an idea. It needs to be simple and easy to execute. The best place to draw this kind of inspiration from is a well-known retro game. Many of you won't remember this because you weren't born, which I admit isn't your fault. But there was a time when games were very, very simple. A time before microtransactions, day one DLC, pre-order bonuses, boxes having nothing but game codes in them, or the phrase games as a service. And let me tell you, my friends, it was awful, actually. Bit of a tangent, but don't let cranky old people like me mislead you into thinking the past was a golden age of unmitigated quality. Games looked like this, and they played like this. So, moving on. One particularly enduring retro game that spawned 1,000 clones and I think is still available today was Breakout. You might know it as Arkanoid, and there's a pretty brilliant modern mashup called Arkanoid vs Space Invaders that's worth looking at if you're into this sort of thing. But of course, because it's a modern game, it's full of microtransactions, so never mind. We're also going to need some assets, because I can't draw something good in an hour. Alright, I can't draw something good. Okay, I can't draw. Thankfully, I don't have to. At this point, a lot of people would head to somewhere like itch.io, grab an asset pack and go from there. I didn't do that. You might have heard recently that the Smithsonian Institute opened up a feature called Open Access, which lets you download and use a Brazilian of their 2D and 3D assets in whatever you like, however you like. This is brilliant, and I imagine I might need to play around with that at some point. For this though, we're going to a similar site called Morguefile. I think it's run by iStock, who sell rights to stock photos, but the brilliant thing about Morguefile is that all of the photos they have are free to use, even commercially, as long as you modify them in some fashion, which obviously we're going to be doing. Right, so we're going to make a Breakout clone in 1 hour using free to use stock photos. Start the timer. What am I doing? I need a ball. What do we know of that's ball shaped? Correct, the moon. We'll have the moon. There's the moon. Brilliant. Now the moon needs to move. Usually it does that all by itself because of physics, so actually that's a brilliant idea. Let's have physics. In normal Breakout games, the ball hits the paddle at the bottom of the screen and bounces back with a set force and speed. We're not doing that. Instead, we're going to make the moon a physics object, then give the player another physics object and make them bop the moon about like it's a balloon at a kid's party. So we need something to hit the moon with. Now, what do you normally hit things with? That's right, a stick. In fact, there are entire genres of popular sports that are about nothing more than hitting a ball with a stick, so we're clearly onto a winner there. Morguefile has a collection of interesting results for stick, but I'm drawn to this one, which I think is a walking stick handle. I'm drawn to it because it's also a fist, and if I'm exerting force on an object, it might as well be because I'm punching it. Seems reasonable and realistic, punching the moon. Apply some physics, set the fist to the mouse cursor, and there we go, punching the moon. Brilliant. After roughly 10 minutes, we've got a working game mechanic that involves punching the moon. We also need failure. Failure is, as I'm sure we all know, a key part of life, learning, improving ourselves, and disappointing our parents. So we'll put in some failure, where the moon will be destroyed if it falls off the bottom of the screen with this neat little death sensor. Now, in a Breakout game, the whole point is to smack a ball off some bricks so that they go away, a strategy which, I'm pleased to report, also works with people. For that to happen, we're going to need some bricks. Back to Morguefile to get some bricks, literally from a brick wall. I won't have time to make a tutorial, so we're going to need to rely on people's implicit knowledge of video games, and if we put in some actual bricks, I'm hoping they'll figure it out. Quick bit of testing, and yes, as it turns out, the moon will destroy a brick wall. I think this is now essentially a science experiment. But what's the point of punching the moon into a brick wall if you don't get rewarded for it? So we'll put in a scoring system. 100 points per brick. Now you may be asking, what's the difference between 1 point and 100 points per brick if 100 is the minimum you can score? And that is a good question that invites a teachable moment even in a game as inconsequential as this one. Players like big numbers. It makes them feel successful, and success plugs into the brain's dopamine factory and makes the good feelings happen. But if you put your score into the thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions, the player's most likely going to see through your frankly weak attempt at manipulating them. So I've settled on 100 points per block as a happy medium. You know what else players like? Particles. Everybody loves particles, so we'll throw in a quick particle effect when a brick gets destroyed, and another one when the moon dies. We're making them red and blue because, again, I don't have time to be too clever, so again, we're going to hook into our audience's implicit background knowledge. And as everybody knows, red is the enemy of blue. It's at this point that I, feeling confident, decided to start getting silly, and in an attempt to make the game more meaningful and artistic, began faffing about with a sepia filter like it's the early 2000s, and I'm trying to grow my online amateur photography business. But enough of that, we're nearly at the halfway point and we don't yet have a way to crush the player's fragile spirit. So let's add a live system. In recent years, you might have heard from certain corners of the game design and analysis discourse that lives are an outdated mode of design that should be scrapped from modern video games for being useless and redundant. But the truth is, it's complicated. At the very core, one player's life, and I mean in the sense of a game, not their actual life, we're not that philosophical, represents a chance or opportunity to complete a challenge. This is not by itself a bad thing. The reason it often feels outdated is that so many games have also included checkpoints, save points, or so many lives that you'll never lose them all, and the live system itself feels redundant. The actual truth is that a live system, like any game design decision or mechanic, should be evaluated on its individual merits. A designer should ask themselves, does this particular game that I'm making benefit from having a live system, or is there a more elegant method of accomplishing the same thing? In this instance, for our game about punching the moon into a brick wall, the live system works because we want to give the player a set number of opportunities and attempts per cycle to complete the task and build their score. Their score, let me remind you, being the dopamine hook that brings them pleasure from doing well in the game. Some games, especially older ones, set up score chasing as their main key intention. In the days of the arcade, a high score meant bragging rights and personal accomplishment compared to your peers. A system that has now been replaced by how many likes your dank memes can get on Twitter. Over time, as games' intentions branched out into things like storytelling, immersion, or real-time competition, score chasing became less and less prevalent, but there are still people out there who see a pleasing numerical value as a thing worth investing their time in. A high score meant you were edging ever closer to the ultimate in performance at a particular game. This might sound old-fashioned to some of you, but when we talk about the pursuit of ultimate performance in a game, isn't that just speed running? Anyway, that's a tangent, and we don't have time for tangents because we're making a game in an hour. So we put the lives in, and that went well, up until I forgot to take the physics behaviour off the UI elements, and my lives fell through the floor. We're 37 minutes in, and at the risk of sounding arrogant, we're done. But it's a bit basic. It's still better than the original Breakout because Breakout didn't have the moon, but there's more we can do. So how about multi-ball, or I guess multi-moon? Back to Morgue File, we're grabbing another picture of the moon, this time one that doesn't so closely resemble a blood orange, and we're going to make it so that once you've cleared a certain number of blocks, we'll spawn a little extra moon that doesn't detract from your lives when it explodes. Speaking of little, with a diameter of 3,474.2 kilometers, the moon is quite large. That makes it easy to punch up into our celestial bricks. So in the spirit of slowly raising the challenge, let's make it so that every time the moon collides with something, it shrinks just a little bit. We do this because we can't really do what Breakout did, where the speed increases over time, because the speed in our game depends on how hard the player punches the moon. I still haven't got tired of saying that phrase. So gradually shrinking down our target will be a fitting substitute for a rising challenge. And now at 53 minutes we really are done. We're going with Moonfister as a title, because what else could you possibly call it? And we've got a game over screen that reports your score, and that's all we're really gonna— Jesus Christ, I forgot the audio. So remember when I was talking about assets, and I said that we could go to itch.io and grab a graphical asset pack, and then we didn't? Well, I still thought about it, and while searching around itch.io's free assets, I found this amazing pack of free lo-fi tracks that I downloaded and put on in the background, because like the rest of you, I'm a big fan of lo-fi hip-hop radio beats to relax/study to, and my intention was to use one of those tracks for our background music. Possibly because I was actively listening to it, I forgot to actually put one in the game, because I'm a genius. So the last of our hour is going to be spent in a mad scramble, importing a lo-fi background track and making some last-minute sound effects in BFXR, like every indie developer on YouTube, until with just under a minute to go, the game is actually finally done. Link is in the description if you'd like to play it, and I'd love for you to comment your high score under this video. It's a little bit janky because it's physics-based, but I think that adds to the charm. And you know, it was made in an hour, so what do you want from me? If you like this video, then please like this video, and consider subscribing to see more game dev challenges in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.